Bonjour le monde! Bienvenue à nouveau dans un autre épisode de Shanay Meets World. Dans la vidéo aujourd'hui, je vais vous apprendre à apprendre un nouveau langue qui expatrie. Hello world! Welcome back to another episode of Shanay Meets World. In today's video, I am going to teach you about how you can learn a language as an expat. And the reason why I'm focused on learning a language as an expat is because it is a totally different experience than learning a language as a Peace Corps volunteer. And I have had the opportunity to experience both realities. One, because I was able to learn Darija through my experience as a Peace Corps volunteer. And then two, I was able to learn French by just having general curiosity about learning the language, and then also having a Senegalese husband who taught me a little bit about the basic grammars of the language. And so now I am comfortable speaking the language, and in some situations I'm conversational speaking French. And I will say that my Darija is much better than my French, but because I was able to learn Darija, I was able to pick up French along the way. And so I am going to teach you today some important things to consider if you move to another country and you want to learn that local language. I'm going to give you some pointers on how you can pick up the language and self-teach. In addition to these pointers, I am also going to give you some app recommendations for helping to really learn, pick up the language, and to practice utilizing it. Maybe you're wondering, how did I go from speaking only one language, English, to now speaking 3 languages? And I'm saying 3 lightly because I speak English fluently. I am intermediate at Darija and I'm novice at French, meaning that I have some understanding of these languages. And I'm here to help you also pick up and understand languages that you are interested in learning. The reason I was able to learn other languages is because of the techniques that I'm going to tell you today. Because although I was taught Darija through a Peace Corps classroom setting, I still had to have these habits and methods of learning in order for me to really gravitate and grasp these words, letters, and the sounds. And I will honestly say that because I was able to learn Darija, it helped me to pick up French after, because in my mind, I was translating between Darija and French and not French and English when I was thinking about words that I wanted to use. And so that really helped me to transition from one language to the next. And that's one really cool thing about people that are bilingual, trilingual, and polyglots, is that literally you can see in your brain when your brain is switching from one language to the next. You can honestly, I feel the switch, because you really go from one way of thinking to another. And that's what's really cool about learning multiple languages. And so I definitely recommend that you learn languages. It wakes up a whole different side of your brain. Before we get into all of this juicy stuff, I want to first remind you that I am on a journey to 1,000 subscribers. So I am asking you to participate in a giveaway, and you can find out more about the giveaway by watching this video. Okay, so the first thing that you want to know about learning a new language is not to take yourself so serious. Do not take yourself serious and laugh when you make a mistake. It is okay.
On est très content.
On est très content.
On est très content
de passer la fête
de
ici
passer
avec la
la
famille.
fête ici avec la famille.
La famille.
La famille.
Yeah. And I wish you the best. Ça veut dire, je vous souhaite bon vent.
Je vous souhaite bon vent.
Bon vent.
Bon vent. Je vous
Et
souhaite
beaucoup de réussite dans les activités.
et beaucoup de réussite dans les activités.
Oui. Et que le fait de passer ici la fête avec vous.
Ici la fête avec vous.
Oui, on est très content.
Oui, bien sûr.
What? You repeat.
No, because I
You
know
repeat what I say. Yes.
I laugh at myself all the time when I make mistakes or when I think that the way I'm pronouncing a word sounds so crazy, and yet I still keep going. Think about babies when they try to say a grown-up's name and they kind of make their own word up and we think it's so cute and funny. Imagine yourself like that when it comes to you learning a new language. It's so cute, it's so funny, and you're really putting yourself out there so that you can develop as a person. And there will be plenty of mistakes. So relax, loosen up, don't be so tight, and just embrace the learning experience. The next thing you want to do is to get a dedicated notebook for learning the language. And then when you get started learning the language, the first thing I recommend doing, and actually what I did, was learn the alphabet. Start with basic understanding of the letters in that language and the pronunciation of those individual letters. Knowing those letters will turn into knowing words, and then will turn into knowing sentences. Practice saying the letters multiple times so that you become familiar with the sounds that the letters make. What I did was I went to a bookstore where they sell elementary level books, and I actually purchased a writing book that was elementary level, and literally it helped me learn vocabulary because I was learning the alphabet. And for each alphabet, like A is for apple, B is for baby, they had the same thing in French. And so they had A and they had a word, and then I would write that word multiple times. And then to myself, I would say it out loud. And this was helping me to build vocabulary and also to practice making connections between the letters and words that they are associated with. And so that's how I started to really grasp the language. One thing that I do want to point out is that it's very important to know what your learning style is. We all have different ways in which we understand information. I know for me in particular, my learning style is auditory and visual, and also kinesthetic, meaning that I love to do things based on touch. That's based on me actually engaging in the experience. And then also visual, because I have a photographic memory. So when I see something visual, I can play that back in my head and memorize it. And then for auditory is a great way for me to take in the information through sound. And so the different learning styles are visual, audio, kinesthetic, spoken, and written. And for spoken, what I did was I got a book that was in French, and it was, again, a grade school level book, and I started reading it out loud with Musa. I would start with just reading the sentence out loud, and I would read the sentence multiple times, and if it sounded correct, like meaning I pronounced the letters correctly, then we will move to the next sentence. And then I started to build from sentences to pages, and it was really cool. And I'm so glad that he was willing to teach me in that way, because it helped to really solidify my understanding, but also my pronunciation. Because even at that point, I didn't understand what I was reading. I was practicing using the language by just saying the words. So this leads me into my next point, which is learn words and subjects that you are passionate about. That will really help you be excited about learning this language. If you start with things that you are passionate about and knowing what those words mean, then that will just trickle down into you becoming fluent. If you're passionate about cooking, then learn about the different spices, learn about the different meals, learn about the ingredients. How do you say recipe? Learn those things, and that will help to allow you to build sentences, and then those sentences will grow into conversations. I was also lucky in the fact that I was able to learn from a native French speaker. The very first French lesson that I got from Musa, I actually still have that lesson. And it was so cute because when I found it, I was like, oh my gosh, it took me back to the very first day that we met each other, because that day is when he taught me French. He gave me my first French lesson. And so we were moving out of our apartment 3 years later, and I'm going through all of my papers, and I come across this folder, and I'm like, what's in this folder? Because I always have these type of folders to keep my files. So I go in this folder, and I'm like, oh, I see this is my first French lesson. He started with the alphabet. So he went to each alphabet, and then we went over some commonly used letters that are connected together. So with A, he taught me ta, t, te, 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 ti, tu, to, ta. And then we just repeated that over and over, and then we went to P. And so I did pa, pe, 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 pi, pu, po, pe. And then we just practiced over and over and over. And so that was so fun. That was our first date, my French lesson. And then also I taught him yoga, but that's a whole nother story. Find you a language learning partner. That way you'll learn not just the textbook style of a language, but also the conversational side of the language. Another thing that I love to do is watch movies in French. Netflix has French translations, English, Spanish, and Arabic. Those are the translations that I can recall off the top of my head. And I will say that even when people tell you, you don't have to speak this language, you can speak to me in English, I understand you, keep speaking the language, keep practicing. I promise you, if it's what you want to learn the language, don't let anyone stop you. For example, my Moroccan friends who spoke Darija wanted to learn English. And so it was a great way for us to share experiences by allowing them to speak to me in English and me being allowed to speak to them in Darija, because we can correct each other and share what we know about the languages. It's an exchange. And that's the way I like to look at it. Okay, the two apps that I want to tell you about, one is my favorite, and this one was perfect because although I was able to learn the basics of French, I still had a missing link, and that was my ability to respond to people without having to think for a long time about my response. And that's what goes back to my statement about learning another language. You can literally see your brain switch from one language to the other. Pimsleur is perfect because it was auditory learning style, and it had a conversation with you and it gave you scenarios, and then it would say, how do you say this? And then I would answer, and then the audio would say, this is how you say it, and it would repeat it. And so in that same time, I'm quizzing myself on how quickly I can respond before the audio comes in and says this is the correct answer. And then once the audio does, I repeat after the audio. And so I really loved Pimsleur, and there are so many audio recordings for different scenarios. If you want to take advantage of that type of learning experience, then I recommend Pimsleur. It's very, very good. The next one that I recommend is Motley. On Motley, you can actually talk to people as language partners. And so that's the cool thing about Motley. It's game-based, so you play grammar games, you play audio games, you build sentences. And in addition to that, you also have the opportunity to chat with native speakers. So I recommend both of these apps, Pimsleur and Motley, if you want to learn a new language. Comment below and let me know which language you want to learn. Love to have conversation with you and see what your process is for learning new languages. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you are new, hey. If you are already a part of the family, then welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and until next time, bye.